The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on the future of reporting and analytics for Microsoft Business Central. We appreciate everyone's time viewing this presentation. My name is Greg Miles. I'm the Marketing Manager for ICEP's Technology Group, located outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and serving the entire Mid-Atlantic region and beyond. Some of you on this webinar may or may not know of ICEP's technology. For over 40 years, we've been helping distributors, manufacturers, and other small to mid-sized companies with various supply chain management and technology solutions. We are a Microsoft Cloud solution provider offering several Microsoft technologies such as ERP, CRM, Office, Teams, Azure, Cloud Computing, and Power BI. We specialize in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, plus many popular complementary solutions, including Cosmos, reporting for Business Central. With me today and presenting is Anthony Bonaducci from Cosmos Data Technologies. We will be recording this webinar and will make it available to everyone on request. Also, everyone is on mute. However, we'll have time at the end of the presentation to answer any of your questions. I want to first direct your attention to the handout section in which you can download the Cosmos Data Technologies brochure. Now I'll pass the presentation over to Anthony. Thanks, Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. And again, thank you everyone for attending today. So as Greg said, my name is Anthony Bonaducci. I'm one of the founders here at Cosmos Data Technologies. So I'll be kind of driving us today through this presentation. I've known the ICEPS guys and gals for many, many years now. So it's always fun working with the team there. They're a great group. And again, I appreciate the time and the floor to take you through this. And so this is going to be an action-packed presentation, and it's going to be something that's important, it's relevant, and it's truly impactful, right? When we talk about reporting and analytics and data access, the world's only become more hyper-competitive, right, when it comes to access to data and data-driven decisions, and companies are competing on data. And so I think there's a lot of stuff you'll see as we go through this presentation that will, again, kind of lend itself to what you could be doing if you're not doing it now and how to make your life easier. When we look at third-party tools like this, it's all about saving time, saving money, accessing the data quicker, faster, better, etc. And so again, I hope you see a lot of that today as we go through this. And so to kick things off, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. So as far as our agenda goes, I'll spend just 1 or 2 minutes talking about us so you know who the heck Cosmos is. Then I'll talk about the components of the product and the components of a tool like this. And so we'll go through that in some level of detail. Then we're going to spend the majority of the time just in the actual solution. So seeing a tool like this in action, seeing what it brings to the table. And so that's where we'll spend, as I said, the majority of the time today. Then I'll bring you back for a couple closing thoughts, and then we'll answer any questions that may have come up throughout the webinar or at the end of the webinar if we have a few minutes left. We should be able to get everyone out of here, 10, 15 minutes early, which is great. That way you can get ready for your next meeting. So jumping in here, I won't read this entire slide to you. You can take a look at this and read anything you'd like. What I will draw your attention to is this box here in red and what's next to that as far as the text goes, because I've been in this space for about 10 or 11 years, focusing entirely on reporting, analytics, and data management for Microsoft ERP users and in the Microsoft channel. And a couple notes on that too. My founders and I, my co-founders and I mean, we've been doing this for 35 years. So we took all that knowledge, all that existing know-how, and we distilled that down into what you're going to see today when it comes to Cosmos. So this is kind of years and years of feedback, years of working with customers and really what they want out of a solution like this. That's a big distinction here. We don't build what we think we want, we build what our users ask for, and that's been a really good recipe for success. And so when we look at that from a product perspective, there's really 4 key components here. So the first is we knew the solution needed to be lightning fast, right? No one wants to click run on a report and then wait for an hour for a report to go and update. And unfortunately, in the Business Central space, in the cloud space, that's a reality with a lot of the other tools, a lot of the other household names. And so we knew we needed to come out with a tool that would actually be performant when it's used against Business Central Cloud. And I think you'll see here in just a minute, and you'll see in the demonstration that this is truly lightning fast. We knew it needed to be easy to use. This is a tool built for business users. We're trying to avoid the IT bottleneck, right? Not create that. And that's no knock on IT, obviously, but oftentimes users aren't technical enough to create their own reports. They have to go to the IT team or to a consultant or to a third party to get reports created. This is a tool that's built for the typical business user, right? Someone who's not a database expert, who's not, a coding expert, right? Someone who just wants to get data. It's very secure, right? We're dealing with people's data, and we knew it needed to be cloud-based because that's the direction Microsoft is moving, and I think we all realize that. So those are kind of the 4 pillars of success from the product standpoint. And so what I'm going to do is jump forward here, and I want to show you kind of our crowning achievement, right, when you look at Cosmos. So as I mentioned, the #1 thing we kept hearing about before we started Cosmos was performance and report performance against Business Central Cloud. And so that was probably out of the gate, the biggest thing we wanted to make sure we hit the nail on the head with. And as you can see here, we absolutely did just that. So compared to other household names, other Excel-based reporting solutions, Cosmos reports run on average 48 times faster. That's some serious time savings, and we'll talk about also why that's important. If you're on this call and you're using a different, reporting tool for Microsoft, you may be experiencing some other issues that stem from this performance piece, and we'll talk about that and how Cosmos helps solve that. So getting into the product itself, all right, there's really 4 key components, and the first one is what we call the Cosmos portal. And the simplest way to describe this is a cloud solution. The web is a big part of this. And so this is really the center of the solar system when it comes to this product, right? Everything revolves around this. This is where your existing reports and dashboards are going to live. This is where you'll go to author new reports and dashboards, manage users, permissions, security, sharing, edit your data model behind the scenes. And then Cosmos ships with dozens of pre-built reports out of the box. And unlike other tools you may be familiar with, those reports live and breathe inside of Cosmos via the Cosmos report gallery. So you can, be up and running in Cosmos in 15 to 20 minutes. That's how long our onboarding takes typically, but you can be up and running, and then you can go in there and just start bringing in the pre-built reports, and every single one of those will work out of the box. So we'll talk about that in more detail, but that's the Cosmos portal. The second thing we're going to look at is the Cosmos report editor. And this is our methodology and our approach to creating reports, right? This is going to be your Excel-based style reports that you're going to use the report editor for. We'll talk about dashboards here in a minute. But the nice thing about the Cosmos report editor, again, you've already heard me say this, it's designed with business users in mind, right? You do not need to be a technical expert. You don't need to know the database structure. You can just come in and quickly find the information you want and use more of a point and click, drag and drop approach to build out your reports. One of the things people really like in comparison to other methodologies around reporting is this 4th bullet point, which is the auto linking. So if you've ever used a reporting tool or you've tried to create reports, the biggest difficulty for most business users is finding data and joining the tables together where that data resides. So for example, a sales report might need to pull from 6 different tables in Business Central, and the user is left with the burden of trying to join all that data across all those tables. And so with Cosmos, that's removed. That's no longer part of the equation because Cosmos does the auto linking for you, and it will show you exactly what your options are, and you can just pick a link. So we'll talk about that as we get into the product. Now, the third piece here is the dashboarding side of the product. And this is one of the most exciting things that we've brought to market because it was requested by our partners, by our customers. And that is, we designed a 2-way integration with Power BI and Cosmos. What that means is that you can access immediately from Power BI your Cosmos data model. So you can just start dragging and dropping and building dashboards, no SQL, no DAX code, immediate Power BI access. And if you're on this webinar and you've tried Power BI in the past and you've stumbled or haven't got very far, this is what gets you to that ability to just start using Power BI as you actually want to use it, which is to create dashboards and reports. On the other side of the integration, we also recognize that a lot of our customers don't want to juggle multiple solutions, right? So they want to build those dashboards, and then they want to access them from the same portal that their financials and operational Excel-based reports live. So we integrated your Power BI workspaces, reports, and dashboards directly inside of the Cosmos portal. So I'm going to show you all this, but this makes Power BI a reality, on day one, in minutes, not weeks, months, right? So that's a very, very powerful feature, and we'll look at that in a bit. Lastly, if we have some time, I'll do a very quick overview on what we call the Cosmos Data Engine. And the Cosmos Data Engine is Microsoft's recommended approach to dealing with Business Central Cloud data. It's a way we take the data, organize it, make it nice and clean, easy to use from a reporting perspective, and we put it all into a trimmed down subset of tables and fields. You can think of this as a reporting database or a data warehouse, but it's the ability to basically consolidate down, parse down only the information that users need for reporting and leave the rest of the clutter behind. So we'll talk about that more in the actual presentation when we're in the product. But Business Central has hundreds of tables, thousands of fields. The average report writer only uses 10 to 15 tables, maybe 100 fields. So there's no point in constantly having them see all these tables and fields they're never going to use. So we leave that clutter behind. So we'll talk about that more. But what I want to do now is switch gears and spend the majority of our time in the actual product itself. And so I'm going to flip over here to my Cosmos tab real quick, and we should be seeing this portal coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here to log in. And what that's going to do, I've already logged in today, so it's kind of cached. But what that just did there, to make sure you saw that, is that actually brought me in using my Microsoft credentials. So the same credentials you use for Business Central, the same credentials you use for any of your other Microsoft products, you're going to be available to you there, and you're going to be able to access them. So very, very powerful in that sense, that you don't have to juggle another set of credentials. It's very streamlined, and it's secure because you already have users set up in Azure Active Directory. So it's a very nice way to get back and forth. Now, I'm an admin, so by default, it took me into this admin section. Most users, when they come in, are going to pop directly into the reports section. And so we'll start here, and we'll touch on the admin stuff at the end. But this is going to be on a per user basis, all the reports and dashboards that, in this case, Anthony has access to, right? So these are reports that either I've built and published in here, or that other users have built and shared with me. Now what I'm able to do is come in and interact with any of these. And I wanted to mention again, I know we talked about this during the slides, but Cosmos ships with dozens of reports out of the box. So many of these reports you see here are just out of our out-of-the-box gallery. And so one of the things that we're really proud of, as I mentioned already, is how we build things. And we build what people ask us to build. And so early on, we had these reports living externally, and we had a user, actually 2 users in a week, say, God, it'd be really nice if those were just inside of the product and you could just click a button and start using them. So I came in here, showed our CTO, and our CTO and his team said, okay, we'll have that in 2 days. 2 days later, we had a report gallery, and users can come in and just bring in reports with the push of a button. Once those reports are in here, if you haven't seen a refreshable report or refreshable reporting tool, it's very, very easy to use, right? So I want to run one of my financial statements, right? I want to run this income statement by company. Well, I can click this little play button here, or that run button. And what that does is that brings up a task on the right-hand side of my screen. So I can come over here now, and I can interact with any of the filters that I've made available to my users. So when I built this report, I basically said, I want my users to be able to look at different date periods, right? So in this case, different months. And I'll just go ahead and run this so you can see how this works. But when I click that run button, what's going to happen is it's going to spin up everything behind the scenes and start actually going off to run that report. So we'll give that just a second here. And actually, I realized this is I may have not logged in and out of my portal all day, so it might actually be cached. Let me log back in here real quick. There we go. Okay, perfect. So I actually picked my credentials this time. Let's see if that's going to cooperate a bit more here. So I'll come in and run this income statement by company one more time. We'll see our date range, and let's see this thing go ahead and take off. There we go. That looks a lot more correct. So we see that ran instantly. I think it was still cached from my last call today. But if we pop in here, we have our report. We can open this up. And we see our nice clean income statement by company. And so again, lots of flexibility. You'll see the output for these more financial and operational reports is Excel. So we can see that nice and easy. We see the layout, the format we want, and you have full flexibility. The reason that we do this stuff in Excel is it's because that's what people use anyways, right? Even if you're using native technology, if you're using standard BC account schedules, or you're using, just data dumps from your ERP, it's the same process, right? People run an account schedule, they take it, they export it to Excel, and then they spend all this time manually consolidating and organizing data. And so we wanted to give folks the flexibility of Excel, let them use all that existing knowledge they already have, and then be able to, see their data returned in the format and the style they want. So that's how you run reports. And a couple other things I'll point out here. It's not a free-for-all, as I mentioned, right? There's security around all this. So you're going to set up your Cosmos users during that 15 to 20-minute onboarding call. Then you're able to come in here and share this out. So if I don't share this with Aaliyah, when she logs in, she doesn't see this report tile. It's just not available to her. So you don't have to worry about people, having access to reports they shouldn't. On top of that, there is this little button here for archiving. And so I mentioned that a lot of times when folks use native ERP technology or other tools in the space that are third-party add-ons for reporting, they go and run reports or create reports, and then it's like, okay, well, I have everything in my Excel file, so it's month end, I'll save that off and I'll send it to our CFO and our CEO, and I'll drop it into a shared network drive, then I'll set permissions, or I'll put it up on SharePoint. And you can cut out a lot of that stuff just by using the archiving in Cosmos. So there's that copy I just ran. It will always save on a per user basis. Every user's report runs for 24 hours. So if you ran this yesterday and you wanted to compare it to today, you could just open the copy from yesterday, look at the copy you had today, and flip back between the two, compare them side by side. But let's use that same example I just riffed on. Let's say it's month end. The books are closed, the financials look good. What do I do with this stuff? Well, I can run my report or my report package, so my entire financial package, and I can just say, let's archive this. So we'll say this is our financial package for December 22. I can click that archive button, and that will live down here permanently. So you can see I archived one a while back here in August, and it's it's searchable, it's easy to find if you have lots of things archived, right? I search for August, there's our August income statement, right, with the message. So very, very easy to use this. And once they're archived, you can share them into other users' portals. So if I'm the VP of Finance and I want to share this with our CFO, I can run our financial package, everything looks good, and then I can go in there and share it to our CFO so she can go in there and look at that stuff, right? Just all centralized. We're trying to minimize the headache and hassle around reporting for our users. So that's the idea with the pre-built reports, right? We've seen how you can come in and run them. We've seen how you can import pre-built reports. Any of these can be customized or modified. You can just edit these reports, and the way you do that is to check them out into your workspace, which just means I'm checking out a report to make changes. Users can continue running the report. When I check it back in, they have the new version. But I'll show you how to build something from scratch so you can see how easy this stuff is with a tool like this. So I'm going to do, we've seen some financials. Let's do like a monthly sales by salesperson or something like that. So we'll create this report. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically open up a new Excel file. In this case, I'm using Excel Online since it's a cloud solution, but we could be using Excel Desktop. But it's going to open up an Excel file. And just to demonstrate, as I mentioned, since I have this report in progress, it's going to live in my workspace. Just think of that as your work in progress. Until I check this in and share it out with someone, they don't even see it. They don't know it's in progress. It's not available. I'm the only one working on it, and I can take my time to get it done. That being said, it's very fast and easy to do these things. So I'm going to come in here and say, let's kind of do a little bit of Excel formatting. So we'll do monthly sales by salesperson, customer number, name, city, the state they're located in, how about the country, and the sales by month or something like that. So this is where all that existing Excel knowledge gets to come into play, right? Format it. You have full flexibility, full control over what you want this to look like, but I'll just spend a couple seconds here to make this look nice. Great. So we'll give ourselves a little room. And then everything else we do from here on is going to be done through our Cosmos ribbon. So if you've used other Excel style reporting tools or reporting add-ins, this is going to look different because this is actually modern, right? This is the modern Office Excel add-in. And so this is how Microsoft wants Excel add-ins to work moving forward. And a big reason for this, and the reason they go this route now, is because this approach is cross-platform. There's other tools in the space that have Excel reporting add-ins. They don't work on Macs, right? You can't use them on a Mac. So if you're a Mac user, either partition your hard drive or you have to log into a VM or something else. Everything Cosmos does, because we're cutting edge with Microsoft, is cross-platform. You can use it on smartphones, tablets, Excel for Mac, Excel for Windows, right? It's meant to be real, cross-platform, and usable. And so, part of that too, I should mention, one of the big benefits of staying tight with Microsoft is that Microsoft is investing into our product. So, monetarily investing, which has been fantastic. It's a great partnership. We've known the Microsoft team in Dynamics for many, many years. And so there was a lot of excitement around Cosmos. And if I come in here now, I'm going to use this Cosmos add-in to build out the rest of this report. So I'm going to click on step 1, and there's really only 4 steps. Once you understand these, it's very, very simple to create any report you want. So step 1, we're going to bring in report options or filters. And so, as I mentioned, we ship with Cosmos out of the box to our users a really nice, clean data model. And you might be thinking, well, this isn't very many tables. And as I mentioned, that's because like our sales transactions table pulls from 10 different tables in Business Central, right? So it's like seeing 10 tables consolidated into a single view around a single bit of information around sales in this case. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bring in a filter for year. So I can come in and just find that in my very robust date table, or I can always use the find as I type. But I'll just do year, and I'll put in a placeholder here. So what this has done, if I was to preview and run this report right now, is it's brought in my filter. That's all I need to do. I don't need to have a separate sheet or a separate options page or reference all these filters in my, in my Excel functions. Don't have to do any of that, right? Cuts down on user error, makes it very simple, very fast. Add as many filters as you want. Cosmos has intelligence to know that all this stuff needs to carry through the report. So there's our year filter. Step 2 is going to be sheets. And this is an optional step, but there's a lot of important and powerful things you can do with sheets in the reports themselves. So I'm going to come in here, and since I'm doing monthly sales by salesperson, I want a separate worksheet or a separate report for each salesperson. So I'm going to come into sales transactions, and I'm going to say, on every sheet here, for every salesperson that has transactions, give me a separate report for only their customer information and only their sales. So I'm going to bring that in. That's all I need to do. If I was to run this report, we'll get a sheet for each salesperson. There's obviously a lot more you can do in flexibility, right? Maybe I want to come in here and take my salesperson code and put it alphabetical. So let's do that. Or maybe I want to just see my top 5 salespeople, right? I can apply limits and things like that. Or maybe I want to manually filter out certain salespeople, right? All that stuff's available. But it's very simple. For the typical use case, it's just going to be bring in salesperson code, give me a sheet for each one. Now, one thing that Cosmos can do that other tools can't, that's very, very important, is multiple levels here. So parent-child sheets or nested sheets. And so a good example here might be, we have multiple companies under our corporate umbrella. Each of those companies has a dedicated sales force. So I want to have summary sales for company A, and then a sheet for each salesperson under that company. Then summary sales for company B, and then a sheet for each salesperson, right? So this sort of hierarchical levels within the actual sheets. And other tools, while they may be able to get you one level, they can't go down as deep as Cosmos can, and that's very powerful, and it's something that our users leverage often. So that's step 2. Step 3 is going to be a combination of our range list, and step 4 is going to be our fields. Range lists are just as they sound. It's about selecting a range on our report and telling Cosmos kind of the direction we want to copy down data and information. And so when I come in here and say I'm going to add a range list here, I'll come into my sales transactions and I'll grab bill to customer. Now, I could use sell to as well, but I'm just going to pick bill to in this case. And what we'll see now is we've anchored this whole range back to bill to customer, and Cosmos has inferred that there's going to be a list of information going down in rows. And it inferred that because of the shape. So those are those little things we're trying to take off the user's plates. Maybe I want to have 12 months of sales data going across my sheet here in columns. I can come in here and say, let's go ahead and find months in the year, and we'll grab months in the year. And what that's going to do now is assume on its own by Cosmos that, hey, they also want to have data going out in columns because of the shape we grabbed. So in summary, what we've done is we've built a nice intersection of data that's going to copy down and data that's going to go out in our report. So that's what those range lists are for. Gives you a lot more control over what space you want to use in Excel and how you want to use it compared to other tools. And then finally, we're going to use our fields to fill out the rest of this. So when I click in here, I'm going to add a field function. And I want to show you what it's like to pull from different tables. So we've already pulled from our sales transactions here. I'm going to use the customer table to get the actual customer information. So when I come in here, I'm looking for customer name, right? So I see customer name and I say, let's bring that in. Now, with a reporting tool, there's some standard operators, right? Am I summing up values? Am I counting how many invoices we had or how many unique customers we brought on this month, whatever. But I'm going to come in here and just say, I want to look up the name of this customer number. And when I do that, this is where that auto linking comes in. So this is that intelligence that Cosmos brings, where it says, hey, you're asking for customer name. And that's what's in this table. But in this other table, there's two customer types. So do you want the name of the bill to customer or the sell to customer? And we're going to say, well, we want bill to. So we're going to select that first option and we're going to click accept. So just like that, Cosmos jumps to the next cell and it becomes a very quick rinse and repeat process that we're going to go through. So we brought in our city, we've brought in our state, let's get our country name. And then for our sales by month, we're going to come down here back to sales transactions and we'll just say, take our sales and sum those up. Everything I do from here on out is going to be more Excel razzle dazzle. So if I want to come in, I can do an Excel sum where I can say, give me totals at the bottom, right? Or maybe I want to format a little bit. But from a Cosmos perspective, we built this powerful report and it only took us essentially 4 steps there. So I'll just do a teeny bit more formatting. But at this point, I'm done with my report. I can just close out of this, right? I chose to author this in Excel Online. I could be doing this in desktop as well, but Excel Online's been constantly saving my changes, so I can just close out. And then we'll see here in our Cosmos portal that we have that report. Now, I could have ran the preview from the report itself in Excel, and I could have taken a screenshot to drop that on my report tile. I could literally drag and drop a company logo, an image. I can use the file browser. But just so there's no smoke and mirrors, right? I don't have a blank report in my library. So I'm going to check that in and we'll see here that all of a sudden we see our monthly sales by salesperson. So this is where I can come in and share this out and set up security and all that fun stuff around who can actually run this. But just for example's sake, we'll leave it as myself. So I'm going to click this run button. I'll navigate up here to the top right. And I typically just pin this. Obviously, you can mouse over it, but I'll just pin that. And we see there's that year filter we specified. There's a lot more intelligence here too around dates and things like that. So with some tools, you have to type in more ERP style filters, right? So you have to type in 1/1/2020.12/31/2021, because that's how ERPs kind of filter things when it's around dates. With Cosmos, there's intelligence built in even on the actual filtering. So if we type in 2020, Cosmos knows that means for the year 2020. And now when I run this report, you get to see some of the magic around the performance, because what this is going to do is spit out a separate report for each and every salesperson that had sales during the year 2020, that had transactions, right? So we can see all of this is running concurrently. It just ran about 7 or 8 reports there. And it took what, 5, 6, 7 seconds, something like that. That final step is actually Microsoft backing everything up behind the scenes. And that oftentimes takes longer than the whole report itself just to do the backup there. But we can see here now we had in seconds, right? 8-page report. We've got each of our salespeople broken out. They're sorted alphabetically across the bottom. We got totals via Excel functionality, dynamic dates via Cosmos. A lot going on right in this report. And so very simple to put these together. And once you understand those 4 steps, I mean, the world really is sort of your oyster when it comes to accessing the information, building out what you want. The same way I built sales in this case, you approach finance, you approach inventory, AP, AR, et cetera, any of those areas in your business you want to run. So I'm going to close out of here. We've talked about how to run existing reports. We've talked about the pre-built reports. We've talked about how to build a report. So I want to switch gears and talk about the dashboarding side of the solution. And so oftentimes I get this question, should we use a tool like this? Should we use a tool like Power BI? Is it one or the other? Is it both? And the answer is it's both, right? Because dashboards aren't going to give you your financial statements. And most folks don't want to see their financials, their board, their auditors, they don't want to see financials in a pretty dashboard. They want to see them in a row column format in something like Excel where they can do calculations and analyze the data. On the other hand, as I mentioned, Excel is very limited from a visualization standpoint. It's not meant to be a dashboarding tool. It can, but it's not what it's designed for. And so when you pair these together, when you pair the dashboarding side, the analytics side, with the reporting side, you have the best of both worlds. You're actually competitive with other companies. And so we have our kind of micro level views inside of Excel, more granular. Then we have Power BI integration, as we talked about, where we're going to get our analytical views and our dashboards and visualization. And so inside of Cosmos, you'll see when I click here, it hangs up for just a split second, because since I'm logged in with my Microsoft credentials and I'm logged in as myself, as Anthony, when I click the Power BI section, it's actually making a call out to powerbi.com from Cosmos as Anthony and saying, bring in all those dashboards and reports that Anthony has access to. And so that's what's being displayed here in my Cosmos portal. And we'll look at that. We'll see that in a minute. But on the other side of that two-way integration I mentioned with Power BI, if we flip over here to Power BI desktop, we see this is something that most folks are probably familiar with. It's Power BI. But most folks really struggle to get anything usable out of this. It's easy to install desktop. It's very easy to hook it up to Business Central. Then you're left with this denormalization of the data exercise where you have to write data queries and use SQL code and DAX language. And there is some pre-built stuff Microsoft gives on that, but it's very, very limited as far as what information is actually there. And for the customers we work with regularly, they want more access to information. So we developed an API for Power BI that connects to Cosmos. So if you wanted to hook this up to that same Cosmos data model you saw me using in Excel, you can click this Get Data button, click on OData Feed, and you would just paste in your API for Cosmos. And we have that available on our knowledge base. You can grab it any time. It knows to hook up to your tenant specifically, but that's how you would access your Cosmos data model. Now, it can take 3 to 5 minutes for Power BI to load in the transactions, things like that. And so when I'm on these types of demos, I usually just preload some of the sales information or some of the finance information. Here I have some of the sales in this case. But you can see these are the exact same views, exact same tables I was using in Excel, but I'm here in Power BI. The reason that's so important is because now as a user, I don't have to do any of this stuff. I don't have to join data and work with complex coding languages. I can come in and just say, bring in sales, bring in salesperson name, right? I can pick the visual I want. I want to see it on the donut chart, right? I can say I want to see sales. I want to see that by, item category description, something like that, right? And notice I don't need any technical expertise on this, right? I'm just dragging and dropping. Everything's named in a way that makes sense. It's simple. I can say bring in sales. Maybe I want to see where I'm selling this stuff, so I can come in here and grab, customer location. Maybe I'll get the state they're in and I can drop that in. Very, very simple to access all of this information. And so I always like to point that out, that Power BI becomes a reality, becomes usable immediately on day one with Cosmos. So a couple other things here. Maybe I want to see, as I mentioned, where they're located. Like I can come over here and click on this visual and I can just say, put them on a globe, right? I want to see where folks are. And if we just look at Antone, I want to visit, go do customer visits with Antone. Let's go visit his 3 biggest customers, right? Which we can see are here, here, and here, right? So very easy to make Power BI a reality by using Cosmos to power Power BI, right? It's kind of a funny way to say it, but that's what's really happening here. All right, so now that we've built out our dashboard, right? I could spend a couple more minutes. I could resize visuals. I could drop in some slicers and a title, right? But I did that ahead of time just to save a few minutes for everyone's time. All we're doing is using different visuals and metrics here. But what I can do now is I can publish this up to Cosmos or to powerbi.com and access it directly from Cosmos. So I'll show you an example, and then I'll show you, again, no smoke and mirrors, how it works. But here are those workspaces from Power BI. If I want to view this, say, executive sales dashboard, I can sign in directly here with my Microsoft credentials, and we see this nice, clean dashboard. So now at this point, I have an interactive dashboard where I can slice and dice. And look at the URL. I'll draw your attention up there. We're not being taken anywhere else. We're not just linking to powerbi.com and now it opens powerbi.com. This is inside of your Cosmos tenant. And again, that's very important because it's everything in one place. Users don't want to juggle multiple tools and know, oh, if you need dashboards, go to this URL. And if you need reports, go here. And if you need, something else, go over here, right? They want one solution. So we truly made Cosmos and Power BI a single product. So you can come in here, do all your analysis, slice and dice. And one of the things people really like is that all of the Q&A functionality, which is some new Power BI functionality, works with your Cosmos data. So if you're in a meeting and your boss says, hey, what were sales by year, or what were sales by salesperson, or whatever it is you want to see, you can come in here and query the data real time to find those answers so that you can answer it on the spot. You don't have to say, well, let me go back to my office and I'll check and I'll get back to you, right? It's easy to find your information, analyze it, slice and dice, and see how things are working. So that's Power BI inside of Cosmos. So we saw Cosmos inside of Power BI inside of Cosmos, and then as I mentioned, I'll show you there's no smoke and mirrors. So that Power BI dashboard we built, this one here, was called Salesperson Performance Dashboard. That is not currently available, okay? So I'm going to go into Power BI and I'm going to publish this up to powerbi.com. So what that's going to do now is it's going to tell me, hey, you've got some different workspaces. Where do you want to put this? And I'm going to say, put it in my sales workspace. And we'll see that Power BI is going to take just a couple seconds here for it to actually, publish this out. So we'll see a green means go in just a moment. And then what I can do is I can flip over to my Cosmos portal. So we see success. I can flip to my Cosmos portal. And if I just refresh or navigate away, lo and behold, there's that salesperson performance dashboard, right? So it went to Power BI, made a call as Anthony, and it shows me my nice clean dashboard. I can see, the page we built out on the actual call, right? I can do my analysis, slice and dice, hover over these, see the values, all that great stuff. But that gives you the best of both worlds. You have reports from Cosmos, you've got dashboards from Power BI powered by Cosmos inside of Cosmos, and that gives you a really well-rounded approach to reporting and analytics from a front-end perspective. So the last two things I'll talk about here are the data management side of things, and then I'll just cover user admin real quick for folks that might be curious, and then we can open it up for some questions. So a couple things here. We don't build everything from scratch. So one of the things I've learned over many, many years of doing this is that 90% of what customer A wants to report on for sales is the exact same as customer B, right? And so out of the box with Cosmos, you have all your core areas, all your core modules of this reporting engine or reporting database behind the scenes that allow you to quickly and easily have information from Business Central come together into ways that's easy to consume. So we do our onboarding here. As part of that, we would come in and just ask the user, are you guys a services business? Do you use inventory? If they use everything, we would go check, 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 check. That imports all of them here. And then any customizations that the user wants are available here directly from Business Central. So one of the things that's unique about our extension published on AppSource by Microsoft is that we read everything from Business Central. So every table, field, analysis views, views, extensions, things like that, anything you have, customizations that your partner's done, all of that is accessible. And so you can come in here, see what's out of the box, but you can check, 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 bring in additional tables, bring in fields from those tables. And then there's a transformation section if you've ever worked with like a data warehousing tool or reporting database tool where you can kind of organize and tie data together and do custom calculations and things like that. So that way, you do all that stuff in one place here, and you know that no matter which user's trying to build reports, they have your calculation for gross profit, how you approach that number, right? And so all that stuff gets built out here. Very easy to add those calculations. And then what gets surfaced to the users is this, again, nice clean data model. And this is the data model we've been working with both in Excel and in Power BI today. So we can see that sales transactions table, right, has tons of different tables, or tons of different fields that are all mapped together from different tables into a single data set. So that's the data engine behind the scene. I don't usually get into this process much on these calls because that's a piece of the product that, you know, maybe 1 or 2 users is ever going to touch, right? Or maybe your partner is going to help you with that piece. Most users are going to focus on the reports, the dashboards, and all that good stuff. And speaking of users, there is security and control around all this here. So as I mentioned, we're connected in to your company's Azure Active Directory, all your Microsoft user accounts. And so we're able to come in and say, hey, we need to add a user for our new hire, Jane. And we see Jane's picture. So we bring Jane in and we can specify, do we want her to have full permissions or do we want her to just be like a light user where she can just run existing reports, right? So we can bring Jane in here and then we can scale out her role. So she's going to be able to build reports. She can use the Power BI functionality. You know, maybe she has data model access or maybe she doesn't, right? But we can see that we can come in and add those permissions. Or again, maybe we just want to make her a user that can run reports but can't actually build anything. That's very, very simple from within our user approach here. And the reason I show this is I know a lot of folks that attend these webinars are using a different tool, and a lot of other reporting tools, you know, they've got separate licensing portals. So you got to remember another set of credentials and have to go in there and make changes, or you have to email the vendor to say, can you change this person from a full user to a light user or for whatever it is, right? With Cosmos, you and your internal team have access, you know, your administrators, your IT team, whoever you want, your partner can come in here and manage that on your behalf. The last thing I'll mention on the reports that we didn't talk about, because I think it's really important, but is that when you run a Cosmos report, it does not occupy your Excel instance. So if you're one of the folks on this call, I see some names I recognize from you know, my past. If you're one of the folks on the call that use a different reporting tool, and when you run a report, it's running inside of Excel, it eats your Excel instance. So if that report takes 30 minutes, you can't use Excel for 30 minutes. With Cosmos, we don't actually run these in Excel. We built a custom engine up in the cloud that runs everything, and then it drops the format into Excel. So that's really important. Even though our reports are super snappy, you know, if a report takes a couple minutes, it's not tying up your Excel instance. And that's something that users wanted, you know, us to solve early on. So that's very, very important. Another thing I'd mention is that because we use cloud technology, all this stuff can be ran concurrent. So like we saw in that example of monthly sales by salesperson, all these sheets ran at the same time. You can also come in here with Cosmos and say, you know, fire off 100 reports at once or 10 reports or whatever it is you want to do. And all of those reports run concurrently, run simultaneously. So I like to mention that. You can see they're all running with a lot of other tools. Until this report finishes, this one won't start. Until this one finishes, this one won't start. So you're just kind of constantly bottlenecked by even the tool itself. And in Cosmos, I want to be very clear, you're not affected by any of those things. So with that, I told folks we'd probably get you out of here a little bit early. So I want to just drop a couple summary points here, or I guess a little bit of food for thought, and then we're going to go ahead and open it up for some questions. And so on the food for thought side, this is something I typically share with folks at the end of these calls, because this is a study that Harvard Business Review ran. And they found that companies who embrace a data-driven culture experience a 4 times improvement in revenue performance and better customer satisfaction. So if you're still limping by with, you know, native ERP reports, or you're doing the, you know, the data dump into Excel and trying to consolidate and massage all the data manually, you know, you're missing out on a huge opportunity, and you're not staying competitive with other companies in your space. And so, you know, again, encourage you to reach out to, you know, our friends at ICEPS, get more information. They will loop us in. And speaking of that, obviously want to thank everyone, open it up for some questions. And we do have Greg's email up here on the screen, which is gmiles@iceps.com. If you have questions, if there's anything you need, feel free to reach out. Greg, can you see the questions? Do you know if we have anything in there yet, or do you want to open that up?
Thank you, Anthony, for presenting a great webinar today. We do have a couple minutes, so if anyone has any questions, just type them into the question box.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll give folks a minute here.
Your first question here, Anthony, is how long does implementation typically take?
Yeah, great question. So one of the beautiful things about being a true cloud product, I didn't really mention this, but I should have. Cosmos is the only solution for Business Central that is truly built cloud from the ground up. And so what that means is with cloud, it's very easy to provision a new tenant, provision an environment. And so our entire onboarding for a new customer typically takes between 15 and 20 minutes. We generally block 30 just because it's a round number, and we usually give folks about 10 to 15 minutes back. Great question.
Okay, another question here, Anthony, is can Cosmos pull from custom tables, fields, or extensions?
Yep, yeah, exactly. I skimmed over that really briefly, so I'm glad someone asked. I skimmed over that in the data management section, but yes, we have an extension on AppSource that's published and vetted by Microsoft. And what that does, when we hook things up, it gives the ability for us to read absolutely everything in your Business Central tenant. Custom tables, fields, extensions, ISV tables, if you're using other ISV products, all of that is accessible and can be brought into your reporting model, and it's very simple to do that. The other thing I would mention on that was, yeah, a lot of other things. Like if you've tried to hook Power BI up to Business Central directly, it's not very common for things to actually read everything. So it's pretty unique to us that our extension does get to every single table and field. So I just like to mention that. But yep, great question. Are there any others?
It's great questions. Keep them coming. We're just about a minute over. I'll take one more. This one came in. Can we use our existing Power BI reports / dashboards
Oh,
within Cosmos?
That's a really good one. Yes. So the answer is yes. So when we hook up your Cosmos tenant, we set everything up, since we're going to get user permissions and roles from your Azure Active Directory. If you already have things that you've had, your partner build, or you've had internal resources build in Power BI, and maybe a bit more difficult manner, right? Because they don't have that clean data that Cosmos would provide. Those will actually show up right away. So you don't have to like crumple up stuff you've already done in Power BI. You can still take advantage of that ability to have all your Power BI workspaces, reports, dashboards right there side by side with your Cosmos financial and operational reports. So the short answer is yes, it will pick up anything you've already done in Cosmos, and it will show up in the Cosmos portal like you saw.
Okay, great. We went a little bit over. So I just want to take this time to thank everyone for attending. Thank you so much, Anthony, for presenting. We will be sending out a follow-up email. If you would like a recording of this presentation, please let me know, or if you just have any questions. So with that, I'm going to close out. Thank you, everyone, again, and have a great rest of the day.
Yep. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.